They called it a cheesebox on a raft, a tin can, and Yankee madness. Its design was so insane that seasoned admirals laughed and called its creator a fool. This ship was not supposed to survive its first battle. But on March 9, 1862, it steamed into history and buried a 1,000-year era of wooden sailing giants forever. Its name became the definition for an entire class of warships. This was not just an ironclad. It was a ghost of the future, born of steel and steam. And its story ended where it began, in the cold, unforgiving deep. This is the story of the USS Monitor, the ghost ship that changed everything. Chapter 1: The Prophet and the Heresy. In 1861, as the Civil War tore America apart, the Confederacy unveiled a naval nightmare, CSS Virginia. Rebuilt from the burned hull of the captured USS Merrimack, she was an iron-plated monster with a deadly ram and 10 heavy guns. Her sloped iron armor could deflect cannonballs like rain. To the Union's wooden fleet, she was invincible, a floating fortress that threatened to break the naval blockade and turn the tide of war. Panic gripped Washington. Into this crisis stepped John Ericsson, a brilliant but stubborn Swedish engineer with a reputation for radical ideas. He had already revolutionized naval propulsion, but the U.S. Navy had rejected him before. Now he presented blueprints for a vessel so radical it seemed absurd. A low, flat iron hull barely above the waterline, with a single rotating gun turret mounted on top. No masts, no sails, no traditional superstructure, just 2 massive 11-inch guns housed in an armored cylinder. Admirals mocked it as an iron pot that would sink instantly, a tin can on a shingle that violated every principle of naval architecture. But President Lincoln, desperate for any answer to the Virginia threat, overruled the skeptics and gave Ericsson 100 days to build it. The contract was signed on October 4, 1861. The impossible race had begun. Chapter 2: Race Against Destiny. At the Continental Iron Works in Brooklyn, work began around the clock. Over 100 workers labored in brutal winter conditions, riveting iron plates and assembling revolutionary machinery. Ericsson obsessed over every detail, especially the revolutionary turret. 8 layers of 1-inch iron plates bolted together, weighing 120 tons, designed to rotate 360 degrees on a central spindle. Nothing like it had ever been attempted. The Swedish engineer prowled the shipyard day and night, driving his men to exhaustion. On January 30, 1862, just 118 days after construction began, the USS Monitor launched into the East River. She was unlike anything the world had seen. 172 feet long, with a freeboard of only 18 inches. Most of her hull sat underwater. Her deck was covered in iron plating. The turret rose like a squat iron drum from the center. Her first trials nearly ended in disaster, when faulty ventilation filled her interior with poisonous coal gas, nearly suffocating the crew. Sea trials revealed she wallowed heavily, shipped water constantly, and her steering was sluggish. Officers who inspected her shook their heads. She was barely seaworthy. But there was no time for improvements. Barely seaworthy, she left New York on February 25th for Hampton Roads, Virginia, escorted by tugboats. The voyage was a nightmare. Her low profile meant waves constantly swept over her flat deck, pouring through every seam and hatch. The crew fought constantly to pump out the icy water flooding the engine room. Seasickness ravaged the men. Many thought they would sink before reaching Virginia. They arrived on the evening of March 8th, exhausted and battered, to a scene of horror. The sky glowed orange with flames. Black smoke choked the harbor. The water was littered with debris and bodies. Chapter 3. A Day of Shame and Hope. That very morning, CSS Virginia had emerged from Norfolk like an iron demon and wrought havoc on the Union fleet. She rammed and sank USS Cumberland, her iron beak tearing through the wooden hull. Over 120 men drowned as Cumberland went down, her colors still flying. Then Virginia turned her guns on USS Congress, mercilessly shelling the wooden frigate into a burning wreck. Congress struck her colors in surrender, but Virginia showed no mercy, continuing the bombardment until the ship was an inferno. Over 100 more Union sailors perished. USS Minnesota ran aground trying to escape and sat helpless in the shallows, an easy target for the next day. 2 other Union ships fled in terror. The Union's wooden navy was powerless against this iron monster. In one afternoon, Virginia had killed more Union sailors than any single day of naval combat in American history. Aboard the Monitor, anchored in darkness near Fortress Monroe, the crew watched the distant fires and listened to the screams echoing across the water. Lieutenant John Warden, the Monitor's captain, gathered his 58-man crew. They were exhausted, still pumping water, operating machinery they barely understood. Most had never seen combat. They knew that at dawn, their strange, untested ship, this cheesebox on a raft that admirals had mocked, would be the only thing standing between the iron monster and total Confederate victory. Some men wrote final letters home that night. Few slept. Chapter 4. 4 hours that changed the world. At 8:06 a.m. on March 9th, the Monitor moved to intercept Virginia as she steamed toward the helpless Minnesota. The Virginia opened fire. The Monitor's turret rotated, and the first shot of the historic duel roared out. For 4 hours, the 2 ironclads hammered each other at point-blank range. Virginia's ram slid harmlessly off Monitor's rounded hull. Inside the Monitor, the concussion of her own guns deafened the crew. Smoke choked the turret. One shell blinded Captain Warden in his pilot house, but he refused to leave, shouting orders through the blood. The little cheesebox circled its larger foe, shells denting but not breaking the armor on either ship. By noon, Virginia was low on ammunition and risking grounding in the falling tide. Monitor had expended most of her shot, her captain was blinded, and her crew was collapsing. The Virginia withdrew. The Monitor had stopped her. The age of wooden warships was over. Chapter 5. The Final Storm. Celebrated as a hero, Monitor's design held a fatal flaw. Her low profile, perfect for battle, was a death sentence in open ocean. On December 29, 1862, she departed Hampton Roads under tow to North Carolina. Off Cape Hatteras, a violent storm struck. Waves swamped her deck. Water poured into the hull faster than pumps could handle. The engine room flooded. On December 31st, at 10:30 p.m., the order came to abandon ship. In towering seas and darkness, 16 sailors were lost. The Monitor capsized and sank. She had served less than a year, fought 1 battle, sank no enemy ships. Yet she won the war of ideas. Her name became synonymous with a new warship type. Her turret design became standard on every battleship that followed. Her wreck was discovered in 1973, her turret raised in 2002. It now stands as a monument, a testament to a mad, prophetic idea that arrived in the guise of a tin can and changed the world forever.